Hey guys, well I've interviewed some really interesting characters on this program. Some real men kind of guys, some really tough dudes, football coaches and players and athletes of all type. But this guy that I interviewed today, Jerry McClain, he's a breed apart. Jerry's a longtime military guy, was an Army Ranger, is in the Army Ranger Hall of Fame. And he tells a story of how his dad was rough on him, a little bit harsh. In fact, he loved his dad, but was ready to leave home when he was 18 and signed up for the military. He even tells us one story of how he had to pull a gun on his own father. So if that tells you anything, you got to hear this interview. But Jerry carried that on into his own fatherhood experience. And he messed up, and he admits to us that he messed up, did some things wrong. But in the end, he's going to tell us how to reconcile and how to make things right. Jerry is now a fatherhood coach at Vineyard Family Services. Interesting guy, very likable, and got some really interesting stories he's going to tell in this interview. So I hope you enjoy the interview with Jerry McClain.
So I put a shotgun on him and told him, if you don't get off my mom, I'll kill you.
In a position where you're teaching other guys how to be fathers.
You know, I get a whipping. I had my tail out. So 12 o'clock, I better be in that door. If I wasn't in that door, he'd meet me at the door. She didn't want any of us joining the service. She heard all the horrors of Vietnam.
You're with a real man, Jerry McClain. Do you get tired of people talking about the Army Ranger Hall of Fame stuff?
Not really, because it's a lot of people are not familiar with it in the circles that I'm in. So usually you have to be a little close to the military bases, and then you sort of get into that, or you run into a military guy, or if you go to a military function, then you get a lot of that talk once they find out. But I don't lead off with that, and I never tell anybody. So if they find out, then they find out, and then now, okay, I can go from there. But it's not something I lead off with.
So who is Jerry McClain?
Jerry McClain is born and raised in Greenville, Alabama, Butler County, about 2 miles south of here, and about 50 miles south of Montgomery. Came up in the late 50s, 1958, born into this world, and so got to see a lot of the things in the 60s that most people didn't get a chance to see, but 6 years of age, saw the water fountains, saw the separation of people, schools, experienced that up to about the I think it was the 6th grade, I think it was, when we finally integrated the schools kind of thing. Got bused miles and miles away from home to go to the integrated school, Pacific School, and that was good in a way because all the women in our community we were kin to, so it was good that there were some good things that came out of that, okay? So they would marry some women that we wasn't kin to, so which was good. So anyway, but great upbringing, man. Work was established early on. My mother was adamant about us working for what we want. She worked for what she wanted us to have, and she set the example of that, and worked at a lumber mill. Tried to get my dad to work there, but he couldn't stand going to a lumber plant every day. He had to be a little bit more diverse for him, and so he was a log truck driver. So I just remember that my mom worked and he worked, and they made too much money for us to get free lunch at school, and I guess that sort of made us think that we wasn't poor.
You was rich.
So
you weren't on the free
we didn't
lunch.
qualify for free lunch, man. So we find ways to get around that, but school boy who loved sports and played sports and did all those kind of things, but always had ambition to be a soldier. It came up probably from a lot of television. Television had a big impact on us, and my dad loves cowboy, western, cowboy and Indian, and all that good stuff. You had the good guy, the bad guy, and I sort of like the good guy. So I came up wanted to be a good guy because the good guy seemed to always win in the end. Yeah. He wanted to sail off into the sunset with the ladies, and he was the guy that always survived. He's the guy. He might have got shot, but he didn't die.
That's what he was going to do.
So that was my upbringing. TV had a big impact on me. the John Waynes, the Roy Rogers, the Lone Ranger, the GI Joe, all those things, man, was impactful. And I knew what I wanted to do when I became an adult, and I wanted to wear the green machine, and there was nothing going to deter me from doing that. Even my grandmother, which was a major influence in my life, she was the matriarch of the family, and she didn't want you to do something you weren't gonna likely do it. But I went against the matriarch, and it's like she didn't want any of us joining the service. She heard all the horrors of Vietnam, and she just didn't want that to be something that we was a part of. And of course, I missed the Vietnam era, and my dad did too, because at that time he was the only son, so why he didn't get drafted. And plus he had flat feet, so it was something about flat feet back in those days. They didn't want you if you had flat feet. But I had this real ambition to wear the uniform, and I don't know, everything oriented itself in that way. And of course, I went off into the Army and spent 25 years. But I was always very patriotic. Always, I was really probably the only subject I really cared about in school was history. I don't know, history just. I don't know. He just resonated with me.
So what kind of effect or impact did your dad have on you? Did y'all have a close relationship? You and your dad?
Yes and no. Dad went to work, came home, took his boots off at the door, and hit his recliner. And we were the remote, okay, back in that day. So the remote was us. And so it was like, boy, go out there and turn that antenna south. Go turn that antenna, tell you to stop. And then that's how we watched everything. But and he came home. Mom fixed him a meal, make sure he had something to eat, and we had to watch what he watched. And when he finally decided to go to bed, we might get a chance, if we were still up, to watch something that we might want to watch. But the TV went off at midnight, so you didn't get to watch TV all night anyway. So
these young guys don't remember that. They play the national anthem and put a
man, when you play the national anthem, that's it, man. You ain't getting nothing there. Beep all the rest of the night, man. So
all night long.
yeah. So but old man was instrumental in. I would say he was instrumental in just really. I would say keep me in check. I was the oldest boy. It was the three of us. And he sort of set the standard with me. And I still talk about it today, how they had it easy, because I took all their beatings and I took all their whippings, and so they didn't have to get them. So, and I just remind them that, hey, Dad was harder on me than he was on them, and I probably deserve a lot of it, because I was getting into some things, but in the country it's a little hard to get into real trouble. So you might get in trouble for things like speeding down the road, and the relatives would call before you get home and they'd say, hey, that boy comes by here speeding today, and so you get in trouble for that. And he was racing with somebody. We saw him up there racing, and most of the time it was their vehicle, so they didn't want you.
What do you think your dad did right?
Well, I think the fact that he was committed to the family. He wanted us to do the right things, make sure we did the things that was that was laid out for us to do. He wasn't big in doing things with us. I never fished with my dad, and I only remember going hunting with him once. So most of the things I did like that was with my grandfather or with other relatives. And coming from a small town, Alabama, a lot of things to do there. Hunting squirrel, raccoon hunting, things like that, deer hunting. Those things, fishing. Those things was things that we found ourselves doing quite a bit. We had horses back in that day, so when one person got a horse, everybody got one. One person got a bicycle, everybody got one. Dad was very strict. He didn't like me having long hair. Afros came out during that time frame. He said, no, boy, you ain't no girl. Cut your hair. So I didn't like that, because I'm the only one with a buzz cut, and everybody else got afros, and so he was real strict on things like that. Very, couldn't have my shirt tail out. I like my shirt. Everybody got the shirt tail out, and I pull mine out, and I get a whipping. I had my shirt tail out, but. So it was things like that. He was very strict, and I had to be home at a certain time. And I think had he not been in the home, I probably would have wanted in like a lot of my friends did whenever they wanted to. But my old man has some very strict rules, and it is like as long as you're in my house, you're going to be at home when I tell you to be at home. And so until I turned 16, I had to be at home at 11:30. And he said when you turn 16, he moved it to 12 o'clock. And so 12 o'clock, I better be in that door. If I wasn't in that door, he'd meet me at the door. And so he's very strict with that. And I would say I can say that that was probably, again, good, because their saying, and at least in that day, was nothing good happens after midnight. So, anyway.
So what do you think some things that you would like in retrospect? I'm sure you're going to say it was all good because it turned out good. But as a father, what do you think are some things that maybe could have been better?
Well, relationship could have been better in terms of him spending time with us, just talking to us about life and talking to us about, being a man. We didn't get that. It was probably more, watching his example when you learn what things maybe, okay, yeah, I embrace that, or okay, I'm not going to embrace that. My own man was very abusive to my mom. I say very abusive. He was abusive. I won't say very, but he was definitely abusive to my mom, and my brothers and I intervened a few times with that, and never liked that, and had some real problems with it. And of course, he chased me once because I pulled a shotgun on him. That's what we were known for having in our homes, shotguns. So I pulled a shotgun on him and told him, if you don't get off my mom, I'll kill you and I'll shoot you. And he had a fit because I pulled that gun on him. But he was abusing my mom for no reason. And he just come home and just start assuming that she'd been with somebody and just go into jealous rage or whatever, and then next thing you know, he's going to hit. So that was something that was I took on early on, that I'll never do that, and I never want that to be a situation that I have. If I got to do that to stay with someone, then I just rather be by myself. So that was something I really had no appreciation for. And shortly after that, of course, he stopped drinking. So I realized that, hey, drinking was not something that I wanted to be a part of my life. Maybe it came from his example of something I didn't want to be. I had no appreciation for that. But I never heard my old man say I love you until I said it. I was already in the military with a family and everything. And actually, I don't know if it was a discussion or whatever, but I had never heard my old man say I love you, and I wanted to hear it. And so I said it to him after a phone call, and he said it back to me. And so after that, it seemed to be something pretty cordial that took place between us, that he said, I love you. And he could say it before, he started saying it before I said it, so which was good. But I just think that he could have been more involved with our lives. 3 boys. We got very little mentorship from him. We got very little guidance from him. He came up in the era of birds and bees, the birds and the bees. Well, boy, I got to tell you about the birds and the bees. And I never knew, even to this day, what the birds and the bees are, but I guess I figured out he was talking about.
They
the
got
birds
nothing
and the
to do with
bees.
nothing.
Yeah, so he didn't talk about, okay, you need to know about this here, this penis, and this is the vagina, and this. No, he didn't talk like that. So if the birds and the bees, you need to be aware of them birds and bees, boy. Okay, Dad. So anyway,
so he wasn't very affectionate. Doesn't sound like.
No,
just kind of a strict disciplinarian. Why do you think he was that way?
I think because in their upbringing and his upbringing, that's what people did. When you really talk about kids are raised by a village, I mean, that's truly what it was for us. You always had somebody who saw what you were doing. If they saw you doing it, they're going to tell your parents, right? I mean, it's just plain and simple way. So, but I think it was mostly because of the way he came up. His parents were very strict on him, and he just felt like that it benefited him, and so he felt like, okay, I'll be strict on my kids too, and they can turn out like I did.
Do you have any resentment for the way he raised you?
Do I have any what now?
Any resentment?
Not really, because I turned out pretty good.
Yeah.
It turned out pretty good for me. And again, like I said, what I didn't get from my dad, I got from my grandfather. And I have great respect even to this day for him. Of course, both of them are gone on to be with the Lord. But No resentment. Probably the biggest resentment I have for my dad was just that on the night of my 18th birthday, I turned 18, and his whole message to me: when you turn 18, and you can, then you can decide on what you want to do and that kind of thing. So the night of my 18th birthday, I came home. It was a Saturday night, never forget it, and came through the door, and there he was waiting on me. And I was like, I'm 18. I'm 18. I'm 18. That's my birthday now. Well, he knew that. But you're in my house. As long as you're in my house, you can come home. But Dad, I'm 18. And he didn't like the way I guess I was telling him I was 18, and so he attacked me.
Really?
Yeah, he grabbed mine. I say attack. My old man was 300 pounds. He's 6'2" maybe, and attack was no more. Grabbed me in the shirt and jacked me up. Off my feet up off the floor or something. So it wasn't like he hit me, but he pushed me down, and you don't talk back to me, boy, when I'm talking to you. And so I resented that because he had preached one thing, and then here I am, I'm 18 now, and he still treat me like I was, treat me like a kid. So I resented that. And that night I was determined I was going to pack my clothes up and leave. So, and my mom like, boy, you don't need to leave. And no, that's, J. Lewis, leave him alone. She did. She actually made him come in, leave me alone and stuff. But I was pretty much done with him at that time. And I pushed back. I'd stand up to him. He pushed me back down kind of thing. I stand up to him. He pushed me back down. But I was 18, and I was like, okay, I'm done with this. And so I just thought that could have been done better with him transitioning me, from a young man to being a man. And I'd already signed up for the military at that time, but he was still determined to impose his discipline on me, and I didn't feel like I needed it, and so I pushed back. But that's some resentment. I had times and moments that sometimes he would give me so many licks that I was wish he was dead and things like that, because I just thought he was too hard on me. I just thought he was just like, okay, you're just too hard on me, But I didn't die from it. But
so how did you change? You have 15 grandchildren, so you obviously have several children.
5 children.
5 children.
Yeah.
How did you change as a father? What did you learn from your dad, and how did you make that transition to become different? Or did you? Did you have a tendency to do the same things he did?
The difference was with me being in the military, and I was in units that traveled, that deployed quite a bit, so I wasn't always home. But I created a relationship with my kids that when I was home, I was a bit of a tyrant because I was trying to impose the strict discipline on them that, I hadn't been there to be consistent with them. So I was sort of doing some of the things that my father was doing. I was pretty strict about, okay, you don't bring F's home. That was a big thing for them. You didn't bring bad grades home. You brought bad grades home, you're going to get, you're going to get it. I would say that I do appreciate the fact that my father, he went to the 10th grade. My mom went to the 10th grade, but they were determined that I was not going to quit school. So they were going to make sure that we all went, completed high school and went further than they did. And I have a great appreciation for that because that ended up being a great benefit to me later on. So I do applaud them for making sure we stayed in school. And because I tried to quit in the 11th grade to join the National Guard because I was just ready to get away from home, and they wouldn't let me quit, and they wouldn't sign for me to go to the Guard. So to answer the question more specifically, just get to the front of that question is I sort of had that style of daddyship when I was raising my kids. My son, I was real hard on my son, and I felt like I needed to be, because if I didn't, I just felt like he would get out. I would lose control of him, but I wasn't consistent enough. I wasn't home enough to be consistent with him. And so when I did come home, I would try to make up for not being there, and that didn't work too well.
What were some of the things you did right, and what were some of the things you did wrong in raising your own family?
Well, some of the things I did wrong was one of the patterns I did follow after my dad was I didn't spend enough time with my kids. I was a busy guy, and I felt like if I'm focused on providing and, home. We bought homes early on in my career, so we had a home, always had good car for them to have. And so I focused all my attention on a military career. So I really screwed that up. My military career came before my family. Now, it didn't mean I neglected my family in terms of caring for them, but I wasn't there for them. There was times I wasn't there, drinking, womanizing, whatever, we did as Rangers. We just did things that I shouldn't have been doing. And I was a drill sergeant for 3 years, and that had its toll on me as well, and toll on my family, because I spent a lot of hours at the barracks with the troops. And I could have done that differently. If I had to do that all over again, I certainly I can only remember throwing catching ball with my son once, and I regret that. My daughters fared a bit better than my son did. I don't know what it is about us and girls, but we tend to have a different approach with them. But my son, I thought I had to be hard on him, because I just thought that's what boys need, and I was tough on him, and I was too tough on him, and it drove him away, and I didn't fare well with that. And of course, later on we've been able to reestablish our relationship, but I didn't do that well, and I'm very sorry about that. And me and him have made amends, and we've gone on to have a fruitful relationship. And he's done a great job with raising his kids, and I'm very proud of him. And I speak to him about that quite often and tell him that. But I could have done better with my son. Really, if I had to say anything, that's one of my biggest regrets, that I didn't do a better job with my son. I was too hard on him, and I did things. I knew he was afraid of water, so I would do things to him to, like put him in the shower and spray him with water, just because I didn't want to spank him or beat him. So I just did things, probably from some of that from my military experience, just how I deal with some recruits, or dealing with recruits, and dealt with him, and it didn't pan out too
What
well.
was the reconciliation? You said you kind of made amends after, sounds like years of.
Yeah, I think it was probably because I got my act together. I got my act together. I got born again, and revamped my life. I divorced their mother. Finally reached the milestones I wanted to reach in my military career. And so once I got to the top, I realized that, man, okay, you got to the top of the mountain, now what? And I realized, man, I lost a family along the way, and that wasn't a good thing. I went to the top of the mountain, but I went to the top of the mountain by myself. And when I say by myself, I mean focusing on my military career, and I lost a family in the meantime. And I see some of the fallout of that. But because I got my act together and restored my relationship with God, and that really was impactful in helping me to reestablish my relationship with my kids.
So now you're in a position where you're teaching other guys how to be fathers. What do you tell them based on the things you learned about from your own experience? What would you say to young guys that are kind of in the same mindset that you were in as a father?
Yeah, my big things to dad, I typically start out with them, helping them to understand what you was created for. You're created to be a foundation for a family. That's why you built the way you built. That's why you have the strength that you have. That's why I don't preach you the head. I preach you the foundation. And when they get the concept of that, then they realize that, hey, foundation means I need to go lay myself out into a place and actually begin to build something. And then I start adding to that foundation, like, family, kids, and things like that. So building it from the ground up. And so I try to give them an example, paint a real picture for them on what a foundation is, and how to build a foundation, how to start a foundation, and then how to grow up and build upon that foundation. So I also, like, especially with some of the older men, I try to say to them, listen, you still need it. We got a problem. We got a problem in our communities because you're not there. And so I try to get people to reacquaint themselves with their kids. I remind them that your kids want to know who you are. And they want a relationship with you. They may lash out at you in anger or whatever because you haven't been there, but let that happen, and you'll find that, hey, deep underneath all that anger, man, they really do want to know who you are. They want to know where they came from. They want to know what's their pedigree. And so you have an angle. You have a way of accessing that, and you should make an investment in that. And then it won't be easy. You know, I don't try to paint a rosy picture for them, but I paint a picture that you can reestablish it, and that's what I did. I reestablished my relationship with my kids, but it really started with establishing a relationship with my Heavenly Father. When I got that right, and then I started getting some things right with people down here on earth.
So it's never too late to reconcile.
No, sir.
What do you say to the young man who's growing up in the I'm going to say you grew up in a harsh kind of environment. Your dad was sort of harsh, real strict.
Yeah.
I mean, he jacked you up a couple of times. What do you say to the young man who's now in that situation? What if someone had come to you when you were 16, 17 years old and given you a piece of advice on how to deal with that, what would that have been?
You know, I think there were people who came to me that helped me deal with what I was dealing with. I wasn't the only kid that was going through what I was going through. There was other kids up the street, down the street, who dads were just as strict on them, and so I wasn't the only guy who was going through being a restriction. Be home at 11:30 or be home at 12 o'clock. So I got through it, and I would say even now with just trying to help some of the young people who find themselves in difficulty with their parents, it's just trying to get them to understand that it's not forever. You know, you're there for a moment. Let this here materialize into the day when you no longer have to do that. Being in a position that a grandfather is in is different than the father. I could have a relationship with him and get him to do things that they couldn't get him to do. So that was always amazing to the parents, because like, how do you get him to do? Because I was consistent, and I learned that consistency is really the key. If you're going to help people, if you're going to help someone overcome, so you got to be consistent. You got to be consistent, and you got to make yourself available to them. And so I would say, for me, what I did with him was I did things with him like my grandfather did with me. I taught him things that his father didn't teach him. You know, I taught him how to drive. I taught him how to, how to do certain things as a guy. You know, he could fix things. Even today, he can fix stuff because I taught him. And so I was trying to be there for him as my grandparents were there for me.
So the young guy that's growing up in a tough situation, seek somebody out.
Yeah,
there's people out there you can seek out.
Absolutely.
One final question.
Yes, sir.
What do you think it takes to really be a great dad?
I think it takes a lot of patience to be a great dad. First of all, a patience and attention to detail. I tell men, study your kids. Don't be a paintbrush and paint all your kids with the same brush, okay? Because kids are different. They all need something different. I got grandkids. If you raise your voice at them, it just breaks their heart, But my grandson, the only way I'm gonna get his attention, I got to raise my voice. But I just think patience, and learning their style, their personalities, and then appropriately apply whatever necessary processes to get them to move in the way you want to. What I find with kids today is taking time to explain why you're approaching them. I would pull my grandson sometimes out of church. If he was cutting up in church or whatever, I pull him out and pull him away from everybody, and I have him take a knee, and I take a knee, and we get eye level to eye level, and we have a eyeball to eyeball contact conversation, and he related to that. So because I'm taking time to tell him why I'm getting on him. Taking time to tell him why that's unacceptable. And I just think that when you will get to know them, you have a better outcome. Most people don't want you speaking into their life if you don't have a relationship. If you got a relationship, they'll let you speak into their life. And so I just think that when men would take time to know their kids individually, And I'm a blended family, so I did this, and I know that even in blended family situation, you can have a real positive relationship with any kid as long as you're willing to spend the time. It takes time.
Anything else you want to on your heart that you want to say?
You know, I had this shirt on, and this is something I did a while back with my boys in church, which I had a group called Daddyship. So we did. On the back of my T-shirt, it says Daddyship. And I took Daddyship from things like partnership and friendship. And I said, well, all these other things got ships. I think Daddy should have a ship too. So I came up with Daddyship. And Daddyship was designed to teach boys who didn't have a dad those things that, that dads would normally teach if they was in the house. And so being a church and a lot of single moms, and they had boys, and those boys, I would take them and once a month, and I would teach them things that dads probably would have taught them had their dads been in the home. And so I taught them how to gas the car, and when mom would pull up to the gas station, I taught them how to gas it. I taught them how to find the oil stick and how to, change the tire and how to, all these different things, how to fish and how to put a hook on. And, I had one mom come to me recently and say, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you doing that, because when I had a flat tire, my son got out and changed it because he remembered how you taught him to do it. And so I just think that we as men, we have to continue to figure out ways to impact our boys. And those boys who don't have dads, man, we found a way to get in there and teach them the things that, their dads, if their dads were there, they would teach them, but they're not. So you be their dad.
Daddyship.
That's what we do, Daddyship. Yes, sir.
Daddyship. Jerry, thank you so much.
All right, man. You're welcome. I appreciate it.
All you do.
Thank y'all so much.
That'll conclude this episode of Flipping the Script on Fatherhood. Here's a guy who came out of a situation where dad was a little harsh, and he turned things around, made things right, changed the next generation. Thanks for flipping the script, Jerry.
All right, man. Thank y'all so much. Appreciate it.